Hello fellow hunters, JBizHunts back again with another info pack video for you. This video will be a rare mammal guide for the Call of the Wild. It seems like every post that I see on Call of the Wild forums is newer players posting their harvest screen and asking, is this rare? So in this video, I'm going to answer that question as I'm going to go over all the rare fur types for our four-legged friends that you may not have known that they are rare. I would hate to see a fellow hunter like yourself harvest one of these animals and forget to taxi it because you didn't know it was rare. Let's dive in. Let's start with what a rare fur is. Any fur type that has less than a 1% spawn rate, or a 1 in 100 animal at minimum. However, most rare and very rare furs are much more infrequent than 1%. In the Call of the Wild community, the majority of species, they do have common fur types and uncommon fur types, rare and very rare furs. Rare furs will look a lot different than a common fur type in most instances, and sometimes they will be very noticeable amongst the crowd. For this video, we are going to focus on rares and very rares. For a fur type to be considered rare, it has a spawn rate of 1 in 100 to 1 in 1000. The most common rare fur type in the game is Piebald, which usually looks like a half albino and half common fur animal. However, there are other animals that have a species-specific rare furs, which I'll point out later in this video. For a fur type to be considered very rare, they need to have a spawn rate in the range of 1 to 1000 to as low as 1 in 3,333. The most common very rares shared by most species in the Call of the Wild would be albino, melanistic, and leucistic. For this video, I'm not going to focus on any species who just has these 4 rare fur types. These following 26 species, however, have a rare or very rare fur type that is not albino, melanistic, leucistic, or piebald. So I'm going to show you what they look like and what they are so you know the next time you get one that you can't miss out on this trophy. We'll start with class 1 and work our way up to class 9. First up is the European rabbit. They have a melanistic, albino, and leucistic fur type, but did you know that they have a light gray fur type that is considered rare? It has a spawn rate of 1 in 1000. Up next is the mountain hare. They have an albino as a very rare fur type, but they also have 2 rare fur types you may not know about. They have a white, which has a 1 in 1000 spawn rate and is considered rare, and a molting, which has a 1 in 715 spawn rate, which is also considered rare. So if you see any of those two, don't forget that they are rare fur types. Up next is the scrub hare, which can be found in Virunga savanna. This is an odd species as they don't have any very rare fur types. So if you're looking for an albino or melanistic scrub hare, you will never find one. The only rare fur type they have is light gray, which has a 1 in 385 spawn rate and is considered rare. And the last class 1 species on the list is the woolly hare, which does have a very rare fur type with albino, but if you get an all-white woolly hare that doesn't have a pink nose, that's a white fur type and it's considered rare with a 1 in 500 spawn rate. I was lucky enough to get one of these and put it in my lodge. Our first class 2 species is both the bobcat and the Mexican bobcat. They have 2 very rare fur types with melanistic and albino, but did you know they have a rare fur type called blue? When I saw a video about one of these, I wanted one in my lodge. I was super lucky to have an 8 mythical blue bobcat on my map, since they have a 1 in 500 spawn rate and are considered rare. Up next is the raccoon dog, who has an albino and piebald as the very rare fur types. But they also have dark brown and orange fur types that are considered rare with a 1 in 435 spawn rate. I do know that other animals that have orange and dark brown are not rare or very rare fur types, so when you do see this in the raccoon dog, don't forget. Next is the Tibetan fox, who like most foxes have albino, leucistic, and melanistic, but they have 2 new fur types called sand and smoke. I have harvested a sand and didn't even taxidermize it as I thought it was a common, and I've been kicking myself in the butt ever since. Both of these rare furs are 1 in 1000 spawn rate. Next up is the collared peccary, which has a leucistic, albino, and melanistic fur type, but did you know they have a rare fur type called ochre? Ochre has a 1 in 1000 spawn rate and is considered rare. Next is the feral goat, which has albino as a very rare fur type that we all know, but they also have black as the other very rare fur. It's basically melanistic, but the developers called it black, so don't be fooled if you think you got a mela, it just says black. Taxi it and put it in your lodge as it has a 1 in 1250 spawn rate. The other is a rare fur called mixed and basically looks like a calico cat, which the distinct colors and patterns on it. This one has a 1 in 500 spawn rate and is considered rare. Up next, we're going to Quattrocolinus with the Iberian Mouflon, who has two very rares, an albino and melanistic, but they have a tricky rare with a very common name. Their gray fur type is considered rare with a 1 in 400 spawn rate. Next on the list is Lesser Kudu. The funny thing about Virunga savanna is that some of their rares are female fur types only. So if you see a female Lesser Kudu that looks just a bit different than the rest, it may be one of the two very rare furs exclusive to females only, the dusky and the red-brown fur types, with both having a 1 in 1000 spawn rate. Next up is the Sika deer, which has only albino as the very rare fur type, but it does have a rare fur that looks very common. Their red spotted fur type has a 1 in 500 spawn rate. I was lucky enough to get a couple of these, and it's a very neat little deer. The next on the list is Tar, who has the record, I think, for the most rare fur types outside of the Bengal tiger. Besides albino as its only very rare fur type, it does have 5 rare fur types that all have a 1 in 1000 spawn rate, with them being the red fur type, the white fur type, the black fur type, and the dark brown, and the dark red fur types. Next is another female-only rare from Virunga savanna, the warthog. Warthogs in general only have an albino as the very rare fur type, and I was super lucky to get one of these and have her displayed in the lodge. The red fur type is only on the female warthog, and they look so cool. They are considered very rare with a 1 in 2000 spawn rate. Next is a rare fur that is shared by both the feral pig and the wild hog, and it wasn't always considered rare until a future update changed that, and that is the pink fur type. This is one of the most common rares in the game with a 1 in 202 spawn rate. I personally have about 10 of these beauties in the lodge. Not often you will see a deer species on this list, as most follow the albino, mela, and piebald rule of the only rares available, but as a surprise, mule deer is on this list. Dilute was not always a rare fur type, and that was changed on a future update since it was released. Dilute are one of my favorite rares in the game, as I loved the lavender hues of the fur, almost looks like a purple albino. They have a 1 in 500 spawn rate, making them rare. Next on the list is a base game original, the wild boar. They have albino and melanistic as very rare, but they do have a rare fur type called black gold. I have an awesome gold scoring black gold in my lodge with a 1 in 500 spawn rate, making it a nice rare. Black golds are not considered rare for feral pigs or wild hogs. Now we're back to Virunga savanna with another female specific rare with the blue wildebeest. If there was a vote for the coolest rare in the community, I think this would win hands down. They do have albino as a rare fur type, but the crowned blue wildebeest with its black fur and gold mane and face make it look pretty cool for any lodge. With a 1 in 370 spawn rate, they are not the most rare in the game, and I was lucky enough to harvest 3 of these beauties for my lodge. Staying in Virunga savanna, we have the Gemsbok. The Gemsbok does not have an albino, mela, or piebald as a choice, and they do have 3 rare furs with all having a 1 in 1000 spawn rate. They have the gold, which has always been a rare fur type. My only max level rare was a super rare gold Gemsbok troll. The other 2 rares are beige and dark. Both became rares after a past update. All 3 are beautiful and make an awesome addition to any lodge, and I'm lucky to have all 3. Gray wolves have 5 rare fur types, all considered to be very rare. The rarest of the 5 are of course melanistic and albino, but they do have 3 very rare fur types, all having a 1 in 1428 spawn rate, with egg white, red brown, and dark gray fur variations. Sticking with wolves, the Iberian wolf from Quattrocolinus are very similar to their cousin the gray wolf. They have 5 very rares as well, sharing albino and melanistic with their cousins. But their 3 other fur variations with a 1 in 1428 spawn rate as well are winter, pristine, and olive. Like brown bears and grizzlies, black bears do not have an albino or melanistic variation. They have 1 rare and 2 very rare fur types. Cinnamon is their rare fur type with a 1 in 500 spawn rate, and both blonde and brown fur types are considered very rare with a 1 in 2000 spawn rate each. Grizzly bears, as mentioned before, have albino as a very rare, but they have one other fur variation which is considered rare that has a 1 in 500 spawn rate called brown. They are very hard to distinguish from a common fur type, so be careful when reading the harvest screen. The only reptile on this list is the saltwater crocodile. They have leucistic, albino, melanistic, and piebald variants, but did you know the light brown variant is considered very rare at a 1 in 2,000 spawn rate? I wasn't lucky enough to get one for my lodge, but I did find one in the wildlife sanctuary on Emerald Coast. I made a YouTube short about it as I couldn't believe I saw a rare in there. On the list is water buffaloes and are the first of 2 Class 9 species. They are funny with having albino as only a rare fur type, but they do have another rare fur with a 1 in 473 spawn rate, that being the orange fur type. I have both a cow and a bull with this fur type in my lodge and are one of my favorite rares because of how cool the orange looks on their bellies. And the last animal on this list is the wild yak. The wild yak has an albino and leucistic as their very rare fur types, but they also have gold fur type as an additional very rare fur variation. The gold comes in with a 1 in 2,000 spawn rate, and this guy would make an amazing addition to anyone's lodge. So fellow hunters, did you know all these fur types were considered rare or very rare? Let's be honest, how many of these did you harvest and not know they were rare, like my mistake with the rare sand fur Tibetan fox? What is your most wanted rare from this list? I'd love to know, so leave a comment. That's it for this video, fellow hunters. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. For more content, please subscribe to the channel, and as always, happy hunting.